Shambhala is a B&M hypercoaster at PortAventura World in Spain. It's essentially the perfect example of what a B&M hyper should be like. It's got tons of great floater airtime and some nice intense moments. It's 249 feet tall. That makes it the tallest B&M hyper. It's also the fastest at 83 miles an hour. Of course, it's a hypercoaster from B&M, so it doesn't have any inversions. It's located in the back of the park in the China section, right next to Dragon Con, and the two of those just make an absolutely stunning skyline. Two of those racing together makes for some really good photo opportunities, and it's just beautiful to watch. Shambhala by itself is beautiful as well, with the white track going all throughout that China section. Shambhala is pretty well themed. I think it's to some sort of expedition, but there's nothing too over the top. Kind of loose, but it's definitely an expedition. I think the name of the ride is actually Shambhala Expedition into the Himalayas or something. The queue consists of switchbacks, kind of concrete with some theming around it, nothing too much like I said. The wait times were around 45 to 60 minutes. Both days I was there. PortAventura is usually really crowded. There is a single rider line. Nobody really uses it though, so if you do go in that single rider line, it can really reduce your wait time, but they don't use it all that often, and when it is open, they rarely ever take riders from there, so if there's a bit of a line for that, it's probably going to be really backed up, so you might just want to go in the regular line. Shambhala's trains have staggered seating, so it's a longer train with fewer people per row, still 32 people per train. I'm not really sure how much I like this. It's definitely different. It makes for a longer train, so there's a drastic difference between the front and the back of the train. But overall, I kind of felt like maybe normal seating's a little better, just 4 across, than the stadium seating. I know they've used it on some other hypers like Diamondback. PortAventura's operations are pretty bad. They're running one train most of the time and only dispatching it every 4 to 5 minutes when you account for the layout. They were running 2 trains some of the time, but most of the time it was just one, so the line can back up, especially with those crowds. The trains are super comfortable. It's a B&M clamshell restraint. You probably know how those feel. It's the same found on basically every single hyper, and there is no seat belt on this ride either. Getting into the layout, you ascend the lift hill, and it's got a beautiful view. To the left, you can see the water, and to the right, you see the rest of the park. Going down the first drop, it's really good with some awesome ejector towards the back of the train. In the front, it's more just a sustained floater. I'd say about the same as Mako's. I'll actually be drawing some comparisons here to Mako since it's the other B&M hyper I've ridden. The valley after the first drop is actually really intense. That was one of the main things I liked about Shambhala, was that it combined the typical floater heaven of a B&M hyper with some really intense moments, and this is definitely one of them. You then rise up into a massive camelback that gives some really strong and sustained floater. Not as good as Mako's 5-second floater hill, but it's still really strong. The subsequent valley is intense as well, not quite as much as the first, but it's really good when you have in between those main elements some intense positive Gs. Next is this really unique 540-degree ampersand turnaround. Again, there's sustained positive on this element going up and coming down. It's really intense, and it kind of hangs you sideways at the top when you've lost some speed. So there's some good sideways hang time. It's a really awesome turnaround and a great element in general. After the turnaround is, in my opinion, the best element on the ride, the speed hill. This takes Mako's speed hill to a whole nother level. There's sustained ejector everywhere in the train throughout the whole element. It's really one of the rare examples of ejector on a B&M hyper, so this was my favorite element on the ride. After that is another large camelback, again some good floater over the top, but nothing too extreme at this point. You've kind of lost some speed because of the way that friction works. Then there's a fake splashdown. You actually don't hit the water, but water sprays out of these little fountains. At night here, there's a really cool light package, and it's absolutely beautiful. I probably have like 7 videos of the splashdown. It's really visually impressive on and off ride, and after the splashdown is kind of where the ride starts to die down. Up until this point, every element, aside from maybe the camelback that I just mentioned, had really delivered, and now there's a lot of hills that really don't do too much except offer mild floater. Shambhala definitely excels in the first half like most B&M hypers. Anyway, after the splashdown, there's 2 hills before the mid-course. The mid-course takes place like 90% into the ride. I kind of just went into this, but neither of these hills does a whole lot. Still some mild floater. But after the mid-course, you turn off, head into a pretty forceless hill, and then hop into the brake run. It's actually kind of a weird sideways twist into the brake run that actually gives some pretty good laterals, so that was a little bit of a surprise at the end of the ride. But overall, Shambhala has a fantastic layout. If there's anything I would improve, maybe like another helix at the end of the ride when you're losing speed, maybe have it be compact. Another intense moment, or a speed hill, just something to do with that slowed down speed, not camelbacks, because the way, again, physics works, you lose speed going up over them, so they are not as forceful. But overall, Shambhala's got a great layout. So like I've mentioned, Shambhala is definitely a first half ride. Those first 5 elements definitely compensate for the last 4 or whatever it is. Second half's not too good, but it wasn't too good on Mako either. I've heard that some B&M Hypers have really strong second half. Silver Star, I know, is one of them. Should get on that pretty soon, maybe. Probably not. But overall, Shambhala is still an awesome ride. I rode it 12 times, I think, over my 2 days at PortAventura, and I couldn't get enough of it. That being said, I don't think it's quite as fantastic as a lot of people have been giving it credit for. Like I mentioned, that second half, again, it just really dies down, but still, it's my favorite coaster at the park and in Spain. But I've only visited PortAventura. That's the only park I've visited in Spain, so that is self-explanatory. Overall, I love this ride, and I'll be giving it a 9 out of 10.